happy you guys are here. My name's Emily Einstein. I'm the program coordinator for the New Politics Forum. You're doing great. Okay, so on behalf of the Annette Strauss Institute for Civic Life and our generous supporters at the Hatton W. Sumners Foundation, I am honored to welcome all of you to the first ever live-streamed Careers in Politics seminar. We have 6 official watch parties across the state and countless others who are watching in coffee shops, in their homes, and in dorms. And I'd like to welcome our official watch parties. They are being hosted at Baylor University, South Texas College Mid-Valley Campus, Houston Community College, Trinity University, and the University of Houston, Victoria. So we welcome all of you guys at home watching. Thank you for all the watch party hosts who helped us organize these events. We were also very proud that many of you chose to, I can speak to you guys. We were really proud that many of you chose to partner across partisan aisles, and you're hosting the events in a bipartisan fashion. It's a value of the New Politics Forum, and we thank you very much for instilling that value in your events as well. We look forward to hearing all of everybody's thoughts by using the hashtag CIP14. I'll be throughout the event kind of throwing up our tweet wally. We have a tweet wally stuff. You can go to the event homepage and find out all of that stuff. But we love tweeting at New Politics Forum. It's a part. We welcome technology. Ann Staling in the back there. Hi, Ann. She's our program assistant. She's also our social media correspondent. So if New Politics Forum tweets at you, it's Ann. So keep her busy. So stepping up and choosing a career in politics isn't easy, especially with the political climate that currently exists. And, you know, many of your peers would run the opposite direction when you talked about maybe pursuing a career in politics. So it's extraordinary that you're here and that you're watching online, and I want to start by celebrating that. So thank you for coming, guys. Thank you. The New Politics Forum is an educational outreach program at the Annette Strauss Institute for Civic Life. We are an organized research unit at the Moody College of Communication here at the University of Texas. And through our nonpartisan research and educational outreach programming, we seek to understand and overcome the obstacles to civic engagement in Texas. The New Politics Forum program works towards that goal by hosting seminars, conferences, and trainings that are youth-focused, nonpartisan, and taught by active political professionals. So we want to encourage you to take leadership roles in your communities and become ethically strong and civically engaged citizens, ready to take up the challenge and the opportunity of self-governance. I'm appreciative of everyone who participated in our program evaluation pre-test. A post-test survey will be emailed to all of you following the event if you're watching online. For folks who are in Austin, we're going to have computers available for you at the networking event and also printed versions for you to take before you leave. I appreciate all of you contributing to the New Politics Forum survey. It helps us meet your needs better, and we take your thoughts and comments very seriously, so thank you for that. So before I introduce this evening's distinguished panelist and moderator, the director of the Annette Strauss Institute, who unfortunately couldn't be here today, wanted to offer a brief welcome. So let me just play that video real quick.
Hi, I'm Regina Lawrence. I'm the director of the Annette Strauss Institute for Civic Life. And I'm here to welcome you to the 2014 Careers in Politics. Actually, I'm not here to welcome you because right now I'm on an airplane going to Seattle for a political science conference, but I wish that I were there because Careers in Politics is one of my very favorite events that we do through the New Politics Forum. I think you'll find today very informative and enlightening and who knows, maybe even inspiring. The theme that you'll hear today is that politics is worthwhile, that politics is certainly necessary, and that it needs to be done well, to be done skillfully and ethically. If you think about it, if there's any problem that you care about, something that's affecting your community or our state or the nation or the globe, you won't have to look very far to think about how government could be playing a role in addressing that problem. Something government could be doing more of, something government should be doing less of, something government could be doing differently. Politics is our means of influencing, directing, controlling our government. It's the levers, or it's the steering wheel that allows us to drive the government where we believe it needs to go. So politics is necessary and essential for any kind of social change that you'd like to see happen, or policy change that you'd like to see. At the same time, politics can be more than just necessary, more than even worthwhile. It can be a noble profession when it's practiced ethically, when it's practiced in pursuit of noble ideals. And I think you'll hear from our practicing political professionals today, our emerging young leaders that you'll hear from, and other young people like yourselves from all around the state, that politics is worth doing well. And that's what Careers in Politics is all about. So enjoy, learn, explore, and hopefully be inspired. Thank you for being here, and I leave you in the excellent good hands of Emily Einson, our director of the New Politics Forum. She's put together a terrific lineup for you today. And I look forward to seeing you all in the future and hearing what you go on to do. Bye-bye.
All right, so let's get started. Our moderator this evening is a two-time New Politics Forum alumnus who is a junior at Trinity University studying human communication and political science with a concentration in international and comparative politics. Avantika also serves as the director for the Campaign for a Presidential Youth Council. And the Campaign for a Presidential Youth Council is a bipartisan youth-led initiative to establish a presidential youth council comprised of young Americans ages 16 to 24 years old to advise the president on the perspectives of youth and offer suggestions on the design and implementation of politics. They have many ways for you to get involved, and if you're interested, be sure to reach out to Avantika during the networking event, and she can tell you all the different ways for you to get involved. To help us really begin to understand what a careers in politics really means, we have invited two active political professionals to help us figure that out and join us today. Those folks are not only whip smart and tenacious and value-driven, but they care about getting more young people involved in politics, or they wouldn't be here today. So please join me in welcoming Brendan Steinhauser, who's the campaign manager for U.S. Senator John Cornyn's re-election campaign. And we also have Christina Gomez, who's the digital director at Battleground Texas. So on that note, I turn the program over to Avantika, and she will take it from here. Thank you guys so much.
In order to facilitate our conversation, please remember to get on social media and use the hashtag CIP14. Anne in the back will be curating all of the questions throughout the evening to ask during the Q&A later on. So we will do our best to cover all of the questions. We have tons of ground to cover, so we ask our speakers to offer brief answers to the questions. That way we can cover more topics. So let's get started. So our first question is, how did you both get involved with politics? Brendan, do you want to?
Sure. Well, I first got involved about 14 years ago, I guess, here at the University of Texas. I basically showed up to a Young Conservatives of Texas meeting and later to a College Republicans meeting, and just basically said to them I'd like to get involved. I was active in class, always raising my hand and arguing with my professors, like Dr. Hart, one of my favorite professors, the founder of the Institute here. And just was really interested in getting more involved, and I was really just astounded by the level of access that organization had, YCT had, with what was going on in the state capitol. And so, just the folks that I was able to meet working in Austin, one thing led to another, and I kind of met different people, attended different conferences then on the national level, and ended up meeting some folks that worked for FreedomWorks in Washington, and ended up working for that organization for 7 years. And so really, my kind of message to anyone who wants to wants to figure out how to get started is really just to show up. And you'd be surprised where it goes from there.
Great. Christina?
Yeah, first I want to say hello hello to my team that's watching in Fort Worth. It's mandatory, so thanks guys. You also get a raise. I started in politics. This is my 12th year, and I basically started at the Texas Democratic Party as the intern that wouldn't go away. I really, really wanted to get into politics. I didn't particularly know exactly what I wanted to do in the field, and was very, very lucky and accepted an internship and really put myself out there to do whatever it is that they needed me to do. So as an intern with the Texas Democratic Party, we did fundraising and we did communications and we did press events and worked on a state convention and really kind of fell in love with the career and with the path and found my way into the state capitol, which I did for a really long time and loved it, and ended up getting to lead the Mexican American Legislative Caucus, which is the oldest and largest Latino caucus in the country, and it was just a real pleasure to be able to do that. And after that, decided that Texas was pretty great and wanted to figure out how I could make Texas politics even better. And so I went to Washington, D.C. to go help re-elect the president, and really intended to stay in Washington, D.C. for a few years. And Battleground Texas came around, and Jeremy Berg called me right before Christmas in 2012 and asked if I would come back home to Texas. And even though I had been in D.C. for almost a year to the day, was like, yeah, give me 2 weeks, and packed up and came back home to Texas and have been here for the last almost 2 years, and it's been really, really incredible.
So to sum it up, basically getting involved is showing up and being consistent, always being there. So I mean, on that note, many of us here are current college students. Did your college experiences play a vital role in establishing your career in politics? And if so, could you elaborate further on how college in particular really defined or really helped spearhead your future involvement in politics? Christina, do you want to start with this one?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was in college, I had the real received honor at Texas State to be part of the editorial board for the University Star. And through that, was able to write a lot of editorials about political causes that I felt really passionate about, and to really kind of learn the ropes of political writing. In fact, I'd gone to school thinking that I would be a journalist. I really thought like I was just going to be like, I don't know, the next Nate Silver or something. And then it turned out that like I'm pretty much like functionally illiterate. Can't write a sentence, don't trust me to do it. And really thought like there was something else for me to do. And the college experience gave me that kind of opening to try new things, to go and be an intern, to like get my feet wet and to see what worked for me. And so yeah, I think college was integral into that.
Yeah, same for me. I think that, again, I just showed up and I started doing things and organizing events and planning different things. And eventually the leadership in YCT said, hey, do you want to help be a leader in the organization? And so I said, sure. And just started pushing even harder to do different things. And we really were aggressive in recruiting new members and trying different innovative events. And again, I kind of just met people over time and then got invited to different conferences that focus on college students. I got involved with groups like the Leadership Institute, which trains young conservatives to get involved in politics. Networked very much with the Intercollegiate Studies Institute, groups like that are there to sort of support conservative students across the country. And so you just sort of meet different people, and then you figure out that you can actually do this for a living at some point. And so I really got the bug in my sophomore, senior year, really wanted to get more involved. And so again, that led to me being at FreedomWorks for a while, and then eventually to my current role with Senator Cornyn.
Mm-hmm. So on that note, I mean, you both mentioned how you all were involved with the numerous different opportunities. So for all of us here, how would you suggest that we leverage those opportunities available to us in terms of speaker series or career services or different student groups and faculty? How's the best way to go about the process and to maximize the use of various things on campus?
Well, I think one of the benefits, especially here at UT, and I'm sure this is true elsewhere, you come to university and you figure out that there are tens of thousands of people generally that are active in something or another. And so when you start looking at student organizations, a lot of these campuses have organizations that already have an institutional knowledge about how you can get involved. And so if you get plugged into that and take advantage of the groups that are there, if you go and talk to the folks at the government department or political science department like I did, they can help point you toward an internship. And I really just showed up one day, and Dr. May here at UT said, oh, you want to intern at the Capitol? Okay, well, let me make a call over there. And I'm like, you can do that? And a couple weeks later, I had an internship. And so it's really about seizing opportunities, and you'd be surprised at how few people actually pursue those in a real way and take advantage of just the low-hanging fruit, the easy things that you can do to get involved. And as Christina said earlier, you know, if you're the person that doesn't go away, if you're the intern or the volunteer that keeps showing up and does all the jobs, the glamorous jobs and the jobs that aren't so glamorous, people notice that, and then it won't be long before a campaign or a nonprofit or an organization gives you a call and says, I want you to come help me out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we are in a really, really fun time here in Texas. I think we're on the precipice of something really, really big as Texas becomes more electorally competitive, as groups start to kind of really play and vie for Texas. And so, like, my friend, where is he, Grant, over here that runs Students for Wendy, is a really great way that you can get plugged in. Battleground Texas is offering fellowships to hundreds of college students and non-college students, anybody that really wants to participate, and hundreds of them across the state. And there are really a lot of opportunities, and I think even more opportunities than when I came up about 10 or 11 years ago when you were like, oh, you're a Texas Democrat, let me pat you on the head and send you on your way. There are so many things that you can get plugged into on your college campus and then with the organizations that you choose.
So on that note of opportunity, how did you both really get hooked? What was that thing that really, I guess, sold you on politics? And how did you all know that you both wanted to spend the rest of your life doing this particular type of work over anything else? Brendan?
Sure. I think it was a combination of things. I think I loved the intellectual battle in class, outside of class. I loved going to get coffee with my professors here and arguing about foreign policy. This is during when 9/11 happened, my sophomore year here. And so, you know, but I think they enjoyed it, I enjoyed it. I just love the battle of ideas. But you meet so many interesting, smart people from all over the world, especially, again, at a place like UT or any college. You meet so many interesting people, and just engaging with them about ideas, about history, economics, foreign policy, whatever the topic is. I just got hooked by kind of getting into a lot of great debates with folks and just, you know, having coffee and talking about what it was we were talking about in class. And again, people take notice of that, and I think that like-minded people tend to find each other. And whether you're a conservative on a liberal college campus or you're a liberal in a conservative state, certainly you should get involved and find friends to get active.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the greatest moment just kind of sealed the deal for me is when you are driving on Congress towards the Capitol and you realize that that's where you work, and you park and you walk across the Pink Dome and you get to see, like, this is where you work every day. And that not only do you get the pleasure of working there, but that the work that you're doing fundamentally will, you know, if you're doing your job right, will make people's lives better. And when you realize that the purpose of your job is much bigger than you, it's an incredible feeling, and it's one that, despite, you know, long hours or stressful work environment, that makes my job extraordinarily worth it every day. And now I don't get to go to the Pink Dome every day, but when I pass it, I still have tons of nostalgia and can tell you where all of the secret passages are, because I just love that place.
On that note, how did you both get to your jobs in specific? Was it networking? Was it different connections you all had? Was it just a natural path to your current position? What kind of steps did you all take to end up where you guys are today?
So when I was working at the DNC, we were working on the president's reelect, and sometime during the summer, my boss, the digital director there, his name is Lucas Fleischer, called me in and he said, there is a big thing that's going to happen in Texas, and I won't tell you about it until after the election, but you're going to want to be a part of it. And I didn't know, but they were forming kind of the inner workings of what Battleground Texas was going to be. And it was through my work at the DNC and through my relationship with Lucas and his kind of excellent mentorship that when this opportunity came, I didn't think that I was ready to do it. In fact, people that know me out in the room here know that I called them and said, I don't think I can. I don't know if I'm ready for this. And it was through really, really good mentorship telling you, yeah, you can. Yes, Texas, you're not crazy to come back home, and you just got here. Really led me to know that this was the right job for me, and this was the next path.
I think for me, it really is one thing leads to another. So I got to Washington in 2005 and kind of brought that activist mentality that I had here at UT with YCT. And, you know, for conservatives and Republicans, there wasn't a lot of action on the street, so to speak. A lot of the protests aren't something that conservatives typically did, but we did a lot of that at YCT. And I kind of brought that mentality to DC, and really that was a big part of what happened with the Tea Party movement as it arose. I was involved in that from the beginning and helping to kind of get people organized and help folks get active at the local level. So it was kind of overwhelming. We were able to really do quite a lot in a short period of time, but that led to then focusing on elections. And so we went from activism in the streets, protesting, to trying to get people elected. And so I spent a lot of time in places like Florida helping to elect Marco Rubio, in Kentucky helping to elect Rand Paul, in Utah with Senator Mike Lee, Pennsylvania with Pat Toomey. So I worked all over the country, and I think what I realized in my last campaign, I guess, before I ended up back here, and that last campaign was helping Ted Cruz, our now current senator. I realized that I wanted to do this in Texas. There was plenty of work just to do in Texas alone. I enjoyed working all over the country, but what happened was the work that I did and that we did.
Hello, my name is Jose Castillo, and I'm a member.
The work. Hold on, Jose. The work that we did around the country, people take notice of what you're doing, and so if you make an impact here and there, people notice. And so I think I had the opportunity to meet the folks that were hiring for this current position, and met Senator Cornyn, and we had a great discussion about what he wanted to do. And so, all of a sudden, I'm working for Senator Cornyn. It's just sort of one thing leads to another.
So on that note, obviously it requires tons of skill to both get to the various jobs that you guys have today. So as someone who has both hire staff and has been hired for these different positions, we thought that we could transition the conversation into a discussion about the skills and experiences you guys look for when recruiting for your team. So on that note, we have a question from South Texas College Mid-Valley Campus from Jose Castillo. So.
Hello, my name is Jose Castillo, and I'm a member of the South Texas College Political Science Club at Mid-Valley Campus. My question to you is, what kind of prerequisites or requirements are needed to be part of a political campaign, and what kind of education do you need?
I really like this question an awful lot because I think it gives me a really good chance to make this pitch about what we're looking for when we're hiring. And I get to do an awful lot of it, and I think what is really important and what I tell everyone is it doesn't matter if you're a political science student or an English student or a government student or somebody that studied biology. What I look for when I'm hiring someone is someone who wants it, somebody who really, really wants the job, that will do whatever it takes, people that are earnest, people that have good work ethic, and that transcends what your 4-year degree was in. It is so much more important for me to find people who really, really understand fundamentally that we're out to change people's lives for the better than it is whether that you were a government student or an English student. And so I think one of the things that we always think is if you didn't go to law school or if you weren't a government student, that you shouldn't take a career in politics. And what I've learned is that it takes all sorts of people to run a campaign. And in fact, some of the best people on the president's campaign were math majors because they were able to analyze the important data that it took for us to make these serious mid-course corrections about who to talk to and how to talk to them and why. And I think one of the most important things that you can do is be able to tell me why, to be able to analyze something for me. If you can take a complex issue, because a lot of times we're trying to explain things like Medicaid expansion or the Affordable Care Act or a nuance of food insecurity among Texans, and we're trying to drill that down, especially in my position as the digital director. I'm trying to drill it down to 140 characters. And what I'm looking for is somebody that can take complex issues and make them simple and be able to talk to a broad swath of Texans. And I think that transcends any one degree plan.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that what I'm looking for is a hard worker, a self-starter, an entrepreneur. I like hiring people that are dedicated to a certain set of ideas, hopefully the ideas that I'm dedicated to. But I really want someone who has passion and that isn't just treating this as a job, but as a kind of a calling or something that they get up every day and love doing this work. I look for things like good people skills. What are your social skills? How do you treat people? I pay attention to how you treat people when you think I'm not watching. Like a lot of people think that it's just, the resume or the piece of paper or your degree or your background. Really, it's a mix of all these other things. I look for things like, have you worked at a place where it's hard work? Have you worked at a restaurant? Have you had to deal with the public? Have you had to do retail sales? Have you had to do all sorts of jobs that really take patience and humility and a good work ethic? If you come to me and you've got, you went to Harvard undergrad and Yale Law School and you never worked a day in your life, not as impressed with the kid that worked their way through undergrad, took them a little longer, but they had a job where they actually had to go to work. And to me, that's the kind of, I can teach you how to do all these other skills, or have someone else, do that particular job. And I'm looking for people. We hire people, not positions, and I think that's kind of a key. And I think that it's been successful. I think we have some staff here, and hopefully you guys will get to meet them. But I think that those people that succeed have a certain quality that's a mix of all these things.
Okay, so what I'm getting is basically having a good work ethic, strong people skills, passion and drive are definitely the key factors that you all look for when hiring, more than your degree plan or more than your particular experiences, but more about what you can bring to the table. That's not necessarily what your college will tell you at the end of your 4 years. Yes?
Yeah.
So on that note, we also have a question from Cruz Lopez of South Texas College Mid-Valley campus as well.
Hello, I'm Cruz Lopez. I'm the president of the Political Science Club out of South Texas College Mid-Valley campus. My question for you today is, in career in politics, where do you begin? Do you jump straight into a large level like a national or even state election? Or do you have to start from the bottom at local elections and work your way up to national or that sort of thing? And if that is the case, what sort of changes do you notice along the way? And are they very noticeable changes?
Yeah, so I think if you want to get involved in politics, you should get started on any race you can get your hands on. So if that is a city council race, or if that is a mayor's race, or if that's the governor's race, you should just get started. The first step is just showing up. There are huge differences between those races, and it's mostly just resources. So a large race like Wendy Davis's race is going to have millions and millions of dollars to be able to devote to kind of a wide variety of things programmatically, whereas a state reps race may only have $100,000. And so you'll be able to see, if you start on a state reps race, kind of the wide gamut of here's what a giant ad buy looks like, here's what a non-existent ad buy looks like. And for me, I really thought that coming up through the State House was really formative. You were able to learn how to be scrappy. I think one of the best things about Texans in DC is they love us because we're scrappy people, especially Texas Democrats. We know what it is like to have to kind of bare knuckle fight our way in, and so they love us. And no offense to any of my friends that are from New England and maybe New England liberals, but like sometimes when you win a lot, you lose that little bit of a fighting drive. And so I like coming up kind of scrappy. I think it's great. You can also get started in organizations. So I work for Battleground Texas. We're working on Wendy's race. We're also working on Leticia Vanderpute's race and a variety of other campaigns across the state. And you can always get started with organizations just like that. And in fact, we're looking for tons of people across the entire state to come and join us. So it's obviously tons of good opportunity for everyone.
Yeah, I think the answer is all of the above. I've worked on everything from the local city council level with a town of 1,000 people. To training people from dozens of different countries around the world who are leading political parties and movements in their own countries. And you always feel like you're making an impact, and you always want to get more involved. But I think that you do learn different things. You learn, if you want to learn how to do a grassroots campaign with no money and no TV ads and probably not even a budget for radio or direct mail or anything like that, get involved in a very local, small town, county judge race or city council or school board. You'll learn a lot. If you want to learn how to do the bigger statewide effort, a lot of that is based on hundreds of those smaller campaigns. So, and at the national level, it's when you're managing 10 different campaigns around the country, you're dealing in a whole different world. But there are a lot of similarities. There are a lot of things that are constant. You never have enough money. You always want more money. You always want more staff. You always want more, and nothing's ever good enough, and I think that's a healthy thing. But you really do learn different skill sets. So I would say get involved in everything you can. If you want to make a huge impact, though, I have a bias toward the local races, and just seeing what you can do at the city council level, what you can do at the county level is just tremendous. And so at the Cornyn campaign, we actually have this project we've created called Keep It Red, which is to defend against Christina's work over at Battleground Texas. But what's really exciting about that is the whole effort is Senator Cornyn's plan to basically help the down ballot candidates, and it's amazing what we can do just by providing resources, training, ideas, best practices, things like that. So there's plenty of work to be done, and I think if you just get started somewhere, you'll find what you enjoy doing.
So it's clear that there are many opportunities for students to get involved with campaign races, local, statewide, and so forth, and organizations. So what factors should I, as a college student, or just in general, consider before deciding between various summer options, like an internship that's paid, unpaid, or paid with a small stipend, study abroad options, summer classes, or just a paying job that might pay more than any of these political experiences might afford? How do I go about deciding?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it's based on your local circumstances, what you can afford to do. I mean, certainly don't give up, food and rent because you have an unpaid internship. You can do a balance. You can volunteer part-time. You can do part-time internships. We offer that. I know a lot of folks do. I think it's all important. I think the academic side is important. I think, doing your research and reading about political movements and history, learning about how government works at the sort of textbook level, but then also getting under the hood a little bit and learning how it really works. I think, again, it depends on you. I did, full-time work, and I got my master's degree at the same time. It took me about 6 years, one class at a time, but I was still doing academic work that helped inform what I did professionally. And I was able to bring those lessons that I had from my professional career into the classroom in grad school, and I had a lot of experience in the real world that others didn't. So it was a great balance in the back and forth. You're always learning, whether it's through work or classes, or through just talking to people and having good mentors. So just figure out what works for you, and don't feel like you have to do it all at one time. There's set a general path that you think you want to pursue and go down that path, and don't be afraid to take a turn and go a little bit different direction. But there's so much opportunity out there that I think that if you want to get involved, there's really just no better place than to try something and see if you like it.
Yeah, I think what Brandon said is really smart. I don't think that anybody should go into debt to take an unpaid internship because they think that that's the only way that they're going to be able to make a career in politics. Everybody's individual circumstances are entirely different, and I think that there are so many opportunities to volunteer your time, to be able to work part-time, to do study abroad. I think if you make a general plan of what you'd like to pursue, and then figure out what works best for you, take advantage of the stipends that you can, try to find internships that are paid if that's what you need to do to be able to make your ends meet, because there is no one clear path to getting the next job. It is so much about showing up and being willing to do whatever it takes to get a job done, more than you need to do an unpaid internship, or you need a paid internship, or you need a fellowship. It's just about really showing up.
Mm-hmm. To follow up on that, is there a cap in terms of, are there too many internships that you shouldn't take in terms of like how many you take, or too many jobs? Like, is there a certain level to where you'd want more varied experiences or just more exposure to different internship opportunities? How do you all also factor those different considerations in as well when making a decision on what opportunity to pursue?
I think if you're lucky enough to be able to take a wide variety of internships, I think you should challenge yourself to try something, even if it's inside of the realm of politics, to try something that you haven't already done. If it's a digital internship, the next time try doing field organizing. If it's field organizing, then go and try doing something political or raising money, and trying to really find like a real broad base of experience. I think one of the reasons that I've been able to stay in this field for so long is because I did a whole lot of things maybe like this deep, and then I was able to find the one thing that was like, oh, digital politics, this is where I'm supposed to be. And if it wasn't for trying comms and trying to do some fundraising and trying to do field and being really, really bad at it and trying to do all of these different things, you wouldn't be able to have that wide range of experience. And so if you find yourself looking for internship number 2 or 3, I would challenge you to try something different. Try, tweaking it just a little bit to see if something else fits.
Yeah, I think that's smart. You can also look at what types of places you work at. You can try a political campaign. You can do a nonprofit think tank that does more policy work, or maybe you can help with the fundraising department. And then you can go work for a super PAC, and get involved in that piece. And as you kind of work in these different places, and you get to know how they all operate a little differently, but they're all trying to do similar things. You might find that you like the culture of a think tank better than you do a campaign, because it's a little bit more laid back. It's a little more 9 to 5, whereas a campaign is all adrenaline and no sleep and lots of coffee. So it kind of depends on your personality, but I'm really impressed when people have done a number of different things at different organizations, for-profit, non-profit, campaign, and again, just that regular work experience that I think is in a lot of ways lacking. So I think that, figure out something that works for you and just give it a try.
Then on that note, so all of us here at some point already have or will be approaching our job search. And so, so there are many options to go about the process. Informal interviews, exploring online. What tips and tricks do you guys have from both your experiences and also whenever you all work in the hiring process? Are there any methods to your madness? Anything that you can suggest to calm our nerves?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think everything should start, and I'm a planner, but it's make a plan. Think about the job you want, and then the job you want after that, or the person that you would like to be in 5 years. And I think now, especially in my field doing digital politics and digital organizing, you have a really broad arena for exposure. So you can find people like me or find Brendan and network with us online and say, how did you get the job that you have? Or what tips would you have to offer? Networking online using social media is extraordinarily important. It's so important in my own digital field that's how you get to the top of the stack. If I put out an application for a digital associate, which we're looking for, and you get 100 resumes, and I'm looking through and everybody kind of has the same qualifications, but then I remember, oh, I interacted with this person online, or they have a really thoughtful take on democratic politics or progressive politics. Let me put them at the top of the stack. It's a really easy way to network. And I found that you can really make those connections for not only this job, but those professional associations for your peer group. So who's also doing digital politics in the progressive sphere in the country, so that I can network with them, so that I can get invited to really great things like this. Everything should be a networking opportunity, and I think social media really kind of levels that playing field so that everybody can participate in that.
That's great.
Yeah, I think have your resume together. It should look good. You shouldn't have major mistakes. It shouldn't be sloppy. I mean, that is your first impression. That and Facebook, of course, which don't post anything that might cost you the job. I mean, and that goes back. I mean, that is sort of your public persona. So I've seen a lot of people. It's amazing what people post on Twitter and Facebook who are applying for a job. But that matters. I think what Christina said, makes sense, and I think that networking when you're not even looking for a job is also key. You're always on a job interview, you're always on the job search, even when you're not. So just showing up at events and having conversations and being able to have a presence and people to think highly of you just as a person and as somebody that's interested in these ideas, or somebody that they might be interested in hiring in the future. I mean that's how I pursued a lot of this, is just sort of always be meeting people and thinking about where that person might end up 5 years from now. A lot of people that you meet end up taking jobs, and then you can say, hey, I remember when we talked about this or that topic and you were working at this other organization. Now you're the guy, looking at resumes for this group. So always have that long-term approach, and I think you'll benefit by that.
I also think it's important to say, think about where you also will be in 5 years. And if I had to tell 22-year-old Christina, I would say stop buying your war paint by the gallon at 22. What's really important is these will be your colleagues for the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years. And so always look for opportunities to network with them, but never go in, and it's so easy when you're 22 and you're watching reruns of The West Wing and you're totally thinking that you're Josh or you're CJ. It's really hard to think these are gonna be my colleagues. I need to be kind. I need to be generous. I need to be helpful. Everybody's kind of looking for this next job in politics. And I think if there was anything I could tell myself, it would be help everyone that you can. No job is too small, and there's no networking opportunity that you should shrug off. There's nobody that is so far beneath you that isn't worth the courtesy of a coffee date. And make sure that you network with people, because that person may be the one that you need, that is going to be hiring you, where you thought, oh, I'm not going to talk to you, you're 5 years younger than me. You guys are probably going to be my boss one day, so I really want you to like me, because I'm going to need a job. But I would say network with everyone and really understand that these are going to be your colleagues.
That's a great point. I mean, there's so many instances where people will be looking for help. Hey, can we get coffee? Can you kind of give me the lay of the land of what's happening? And I'll help them out, and they'll remember that. Or I remember people that helped me out. I remember the people that ignored my resume and didn't bring me on their internship, and that's fine. But I also remember the mentors more than anything, the people that said they didn't have anything to gain from that, but they just did it because they wanted to help a young person who had questions. And those people are still people that I consider mentors today and have helped me through my career. And I like to do that myself as well, and look for people that I can help because I think that it does in the end help everybody that you want to work with in the future.
So networking broadly and extensively and also actively using social media to do so and just being present are ways to definitely get involved with the job search and getting these things kick-started.
Yeah,
So on that note, as you alluded to earlier, what are some do's and don'ts for social media in particular? Any horror stories or conversely any smart, savvy ideas for you all to share?
Well, I'm sitting here with the digital strategist who will outdo me here, but I think that it's all about engagement. I think if you have positive engagement with people online and you get a positive response and you communicate with them as human beings, that's what people are looking for. It's not just a place to sort of blast out, the thought of the day. I mean, that sometimes we do that, but it's about engaging people. And I think that whether you're looking for a job or just down the line, I mean, people will go back and remember if you were really, really nasty on Twitter to them, or for primaries, for example. I mean, we just went through our primaries on the Republican side and the Democratic side, and again, it's a campaign. It gets heated. It's about the battle between who's the right candidate. But if it becomes personal and really nasty, I've seen operatives do this. It doesn't really help them in the end. I mean, they're just making more enemies, and all of a sudden, if you keep making enemies, you've got nobody left but yourself. So, you can be very strong. You can go to battle over ideas and policy and things like that. But I think if you make it, too personal, or if you're not professional, if you use foul language and that sort of stuff. I mean, it is amazing what people put on Facebook, especially the comment section on Facebook or blogs. I mean, I don't know if these people, if their family doesn't look at what they post and they're not embarrassed. I don't understand that. But it is just amazing what you can find. So just don't be one of those people at the very least.
Yeah, no, I have horror stories for days, which you guys can all learn about it at the networking session. I would say, you're doing something on social media and it leaves a footprint. So don't do anything that would embarrass your mama, because Lord knows, when your mom's watching, it's no good to have to explain to her why you're saying things that you shouldn't. I think one of the most important things when we talk about building your own kind of personal portfolio, who you are and who you want to be when you're looking for a job. When I onboard all of our new organizers, I always tell them the kind of rules of social media, and the last one is that you never ever swing at a dirt pitch. It's true in sports, it's true on social media. There are people online that exist only to tell you who they think you are, what they think you stand for, and why you're a horrible person. And they will occupy space in your head rent-free if you let them. And the only thing that you do when you go to war online is to be like, nuh-uh, and then they can be like, uh-huh, and it accomplishes nothing. And what I tell all of my staff is that we don't swing at dirt pitches, because when you're doing this job, you have to realize that we are in the business of winning elections, and we are not in the business of winning arguments. And at the end of the day, if you can get more people to the polls than I can, you will win. And it will not matter if I was able to really be rude to you on Twitter or put up a really good GIF. Even if it feels really good, at the time, what really matters is getting people to the polls and making sure that you win your election.
So on that note, are there any additional sites that you all would suggest being on, platforms, portfolios, besides LinkedIn and Twitter, of course, and Facebook?
I'm a huge fan of LinkedIn. I may be the only person that publicly says that. I'm a huge fan of LinkedIn. I think that the amount of networking that you can do there, Jeff Bezos from Amazon says that your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room, right? And so when I'm looking to hire someone, you're on Google and you're who are these people? And a lot of us aren't going to be published authors. A lot of us aren't going to get these really great speaking engagements. We're just going to exist on social media. And I think that LinkedIn is a really great tool to use only to show who you want to be professionally, because it doesn't have anything to do with your cat or the things you like to eat, or me, my Instagram feed is just food pics. It has nothing to do with that. It has only, the only thing that's on there is your career. It's what you want to show prospective job hunters. I also really love that you can see who's looking at your profile, and so it was really helpful for me when I was looking to work at the DNC, and I'm am I going to make it to the next cut? Am I going to make it to the next cut? And I would look, and somebody from the DNC is looking at my resume, and I'm okay. You've still made it through. And you're able to kind of make those corrections as needed. But so I may be the only person. LinkedIn, come hire me. But I love that site.
I think I checked my LinkedIn profile for the first time in about a year, but mostly because the campaign and everything. But it is a great tool. I think you just have to go where people are. I think it's about making those connections. And don't forget, too, that social media, it needs to be combined with kind of the real world, and so reminding people, oh yeah, I think we're Facebook friends. Kind of people do follow what you're doing, and people do pay attention. But being able to connect with them in person if you're in the same area, that's even better. If you can make a phone call and say, oh yeah, I know we've tweeted things back and forth before, and introducing yourself. Don't expect that you can just do social media to get the job or to get the next job that you're pushing for. There are job bank sites out there. I know there's conservativejobs.com. The Texas Public Policy Foundation here in Austin has a job bank that they're taking resumes and sending things. But usually what I find is there's one or two people that sort of know what all the jobs are. They kind of thrive on this. And if you can kind of get on their email list, they love to pass along resumes. They love to pass along job openings. And I'd be happy to help people with that if you're interested. But it really is kind of figuring out where the opportunities for new jobs come from. And usually it is sort of word of mouth, very quiet. Hey, do you know anyone that would be good for this position? And there's a lot of reasons for that. I mean, it is kind of tough when you get overwhelmed with 100 resumes or 150 resumes, and you can't distinguish between people. And so a lot of that is just kind of based on recommendations, personal recommendations. I'll pick up the phone and say, hey, do you know someone that would be good for this particular job? That's so valuable. So again, I mean, there are so many. I remember when I was applying for one job in particular, I had 2 or 3 different people that actually told me, oh yeah, so-and-so called and asked about me. I'm like, man, I was really glad I was nice to them. Didn't say anything bad, and we're good friends. And so it just pays to just be friendly and kind to everyone, and go out there and look online, and that's a great place to start. But more than likely, I think that your first job will probably come from either just showing up or finding out from someone that you meet in person.
Would you also recommend some sites like WordPress or Tumblr or other means of showcasing yourself beyond just LinkedIn and Twitter? Or do those additional sites make you stand out more, or will it get lost in the information that is the internet? Or how would you recommend going about all the additional tools out there to brand yourself?
So in my space, in looking for people that are going to be digital organizers, to be developers or email writers or people that are going to do design work for me, having a broad portfolio, whether it's on a blog or on a Tumblr site or just your own personal website, is extraordinarily helpful in kind of figuring out who you are. I would say, just broadly though, it is much better to do 1 or 2 platforms perfectly than it is for you to feel the need to be everywhere all the time. If you have a WordPress site and it's never updated, and there's nothing about you that's current, or you're not a coder, and so you're making a website and it doesn't look exactly the way that you want it to look, I think you'd be better served making sure that what social platforms you have or what you're putting out that's public facing is 100% spot on than feeling the need to brand yourself in a personal website. And so that would be my advice.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, I'm partial to Facebook just because that's where so many people are. It's where so many people are moving, and it really is when people are looking to find out information about it. I think most people go and look you up on Facebook. They may Google you to see if you've been in the news or if you some other things, but I think this is your public profile and persona, so I think it is what you make it. If you are a good writer, if you're interested in doing communications or policy, if you have a portfolio, it is a great idea to put together a nice-looking website or blog so people can see that. I think if you can do that well, you should. But also, if it's not necessarily expected, and it definitely takes a lot of work to do that and do that well. But LinkedIn, Facebook, those are my kind of go-to for most people.
So on that note of just doing all these different things to brand yourself, just given both of your jobs and, as you mentioned earlier, the high stress of campaigns, we have one more question from Dalia Lopez from South Texas College, the Mid-Valley campus, about the stress of campaigns.
Hi, my name is Dalia Lopez. I'm the Vice President here at the South Texas College Mid-Valley campus. My question for you today is, how much stress are you under? How do you deal with the pressure? How do you deal with the stress?
Can we say we don't? We do. I think that this is a really good question because I think that it gives us a chance to have a conversation about the nature of the work that we do. It is a high-stress environment. The hours sometimes are long, but I think it's also extraordinarily rewarding. The work that I do, even when you're on 3 or 4 hours of sleep, is still the kind of stuff that gets you up in the morning and you're still kind of cheerful. And I used to say going to the Capitol, it would be like 4:45 in the morning, and I would be on like I-35 like singing in the car, and everybody looks at you like you're crazy. But when you get to do the job that you love, it makes it a little bit better. That said, I think that it's really, really important as new leaders and as managers and as people who are going to eventually hire staff that you also create a culture that encourages people to stick around in politics. And one of the ways you do that is by valuing your staff, valuing their time, and valuing the fact that this is not this kind of all-encompassing thing, that you have to be doing this 20 hours a day in order to be valuable. Though I'm making my staff watch at home, I would tell you, and they would testify to this, is that I want them to be home as often as they can. If they can leave at 6 o'clock, I want them to be gone, because there will be days when they have to stay till midnight, and there will be days when we will only be existing on like coffee and 5-hour energy, but today's not the day. And when you create a culture that values the time of your employees, when you create a culture that values the fact that like sometimes we don't get vacations, but when you can, you should take them, you end up keeping people longer. And my goal is to keep my team with me for as long as possible. And if I just keep burning people out and cycling through new people, then I'm spending the first year of their time with me, which may be only 18 months, teaching them how to do everything that the last person that I just burnt out left. And so the job is stressful, and it does take a lot out of you, but I think it's about coming into it knowing that you need to go into a culture where your time is worth something. And I will say, in my 20s, I was like a 3-hour sleep kind of girl and go. And now that I'm 31, it's like if I'm not in bed by 10:30, I feel like I've got like vertigo. It's awful. So what I used to do in like coffee and no sleep now is like green juice and spin class, which is the only way I get through things. But yeah, I would say go work for a place that allows you vacation time, because I swear that those jobs in politics do exist. And understand that like some days, like right before election and during early vote, like you'll probably have to sleep at your desk, but you know, today's not that day.
Yeah, no, I think campaigns it's sort of like a marathon and a sprint at the end, and then another marathon and then a sprint in the general election. It's just, it is what it is, but I think you do have to kind of balance it. You have to balance your life, and that is important. But it's got to be fun. You've got to have a culture that is fun and that people enjoy it. You're going to be spending a lot of time with people. You're going to get to know them, very well. Sometimes you probably want to yell at each other or lash out, and that never, you can't take it personally. And I think that, it's just they're stressful situations. You're lost in the middle of Indiana going to an event where the group hates the other group that you just spoke to, and you're looking forward to them yelling at you because you spoke at that group. So it's just, you always feel a little bit underappreciated, but that is the nature of it. And you've got to be a little bit crazy to be political and get involved in campaigns, because it is that type of work. But the rewards, I love election night. I love, hitting refresh on the returns until they come in, and whether you've won or lost, and you're looking at all the numbers. Just the thrill of that is so fun. And my staff and I were joking the last couple of days. We feel like we've been on basically a nonstop election cycle since 2010, just one after the other, and it's just. But we're crazy and we like it. But you've got to find hobbies. You've got to find things that you enjoy, whether it's sports, or whether it's just getting involved in other things with your community, your church, or whatever. Go do that stuff. Take the time. And this is the hardest part, is to really like turn your cell phone off, which I don't think I've done in a couple of years. But try turning it off and putting it away when you can, and just doing other things, or go out into the country where you don't get cell phone coverage. That is the best thing you can do to relax on a weekend if you have the time. Yeah, it's rewarding. This is what it's all about. And remember what you're fighting for. You're fighting for something you believe in. You're fighting for electing people and helping causes that are going to make a big impact in the world. And then when you see those people as the president or senators or congressmen or city council members, and you see the effect of your work, that's when it's cool to really look back and say, I helped elect that guy.
That's right.
So for our final question, I do have to ask, even though you both have mentioned it, do you believe that campaigns can indeed make a difference? And also, why should any of us here get involved or care about what's going on?
I think it's pretty clear campaigns can and do make a difference, and you can think of campaigns a couple of different ways. Candidates, trying to elect the right person for the job, but also issues. I mean, you can get involved with nonprofits, with campaigns to pass legislation or stop bad legislation at the local, state, or federal level. That is one of the most rewarding things that I've felt in my career, is just seeing what you've been able to do affecting legislators in states around the country and how they vote, and policy that gets done that affects real people, whether it's the rate of taxation, your personal freedom to go to the school that you want to go to, regulations that affect jobs, government spending. All these things, they often deal with life and death. They deal with the money in your pocket. They deal with your freedom. So it matters a great deal, not only to you, but to your family, your friends, and to the world. I think that there's so many examples of this. And everyone sort of, I've been very involved in the Tea Party movement since 2009, and most of these folks are people that had never really been involved in politics before. And my biggest frustration really was just reminding people, look at the big impact you've already made in one election cycle. And a lot of people were like, oh, but we didn't win this race, or we didn't win that race, or the president got reelected in 2012, and it's like, look at all the impact that you've made already. And so a lot of your job as a campaign professional and a political operative is sort of motivating people, keeping them motivated, and saying, look at what you've been able to achieve, getting those wins and reminding people about the impact that you made. I mean, that's why you get up and fight the next day, and know that you're not going to win all the battles, and there are other people on the other side that are just as passionate as you are and probably working just as hard as you are. But that's, aren't we great? Are we in a great place to live in a country where we can do that? And many people don't, so it's a blessing.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that when you realize that the work that you're doing can fundamentally change people's lives for the better, it is an extraordinary feeling, and it's one that keeps me coming back to this job, even when it's tough, even when hours are long, or even when the stakes are really high. Knowing that when you are part of the team that fought to make sure that people had access to health care, and knowing that that was the difference between some people being able to live and some people not being able to, it meant something to me. It continues to mean something to me. It's one of the things that I'm the most proud of. And those are the kind of things that make this job worth it. And I think that every person here has the ability to do something that can change the course of their community, whether it's just the simple act of registering voters. It's our fundamental right as citizens of, I think, the greatest nation in the whole universe and then some, to be able to cast a ballot for your candidate of choice. And we have so many stories where we are registering voters, and the first thing they tell us when we say, are you registered to vote? They would tell us, no, because I don't think I'm important enough, because I didn't finish high school, or because I don't speak English well, or because no one's ever asked me. And you can get someone registered to vote, and you can fundamentally change their opinion of themselves and the way that they view their role in society by doing one simple thing. And so we're not asking you to go and get legislation passed. We're not asking you to be the next Supreme Court justice. If you do something as simple as talk to another voter about your shared values and encourage them to come out and vote for their candidate of choice, I think you've done something to fundamentally change our democracy for the better, and I applaud that.
So on that note, I think it's clear that campaigns do make a difference, and passion and purpose really are essential drivers for anything that we do. So on that note, we're going to begin our Q&A time. We have two volunteers with microphones on both sides of the room. So if you raise your hand, they'll bring the mic to you. And when you ask questions, if you could please share your name, your major, and also what year you are in university, if that's relevant. That'd be great. And to help us kick things off, we will start with a question from our watch party at the University of Houston, Victoria. They wanted to know, are there more full-time political employment opportunities than in the past? And if so, also how has the field changed in the past?
I think that there are more opportunities full-time in campaigns. I think that sort of starting with the Democrats and then the Republicans, we're sort of catching up in this way in some degree. But the whole idea of what it takes to win in the field, that's a huge additional amount of people. I think Barack Obama hired, was it 6,000 total staffers or something like that?
Oh, just
across
tons.
the country. Yeah,
Just
I remember
oodles.
I read
Oodles.
his campaign manager's book, and I was just blown away with the sheer number of people that he hired to work on his campaign. And I think McCain had less than 200. But so we're learning, the importance of just staffing up in an appropriate way. There's this whole new thing on the digital front. as Christina was saying earlier, though, the data side is so big. We have to figure out with the growing population, with this new age, where you can't just sort of, run TV ads and hope to win elections. You have to actually figure out what the voters care about as individuals. We're starting to reach out and try and reach individuals with targeted messages that they most resonate with. And so there's so much more complexity in politics than there was even just maybe 10 years ago, and especially 20 years ago. So I do think there's more opportunities for statisticians, for the folks working in computer science, but also in the field, across the board. Just the way that politics is sort of taking over everything, and I think there's obviously a lot more money in politics. In every election, it's more and more. So there's more money to be spent, and I would prefer that a lot more of it would be spent hiring good people in the field, doing that work, and really trying to spend the dollars more efficiently. So I think that there's a movement toward that, and I think you're seeing both parties at the national level, and of course that trickles down to the local level to try and do that.
Yeah, I think that if you are a Texas Democrat looking for a job, there's just never been a better time than to be in Texas. When I started with the state party as an intern, I think there were like 7 of us. And now my good friends over at the state party, I think they have a staff of like 30. It's incredible to see just the volume. Battleground Texas has 50, 60 staffers. We're looking to add 100 more in the field this coming May. So if you are looking to be one of the people that is fundamentally changing lives and registering voters, talking to people about shared values in your community, we have so many opportunities for those type of people. And it's just an amazing thing to be able to come up through Texas politics, where if you wanted a job, you were competing with your peers for one slot at the state party. And now we have hundreds of jobs out in the field that are just open, and we're looking for these dynamic people that can go out and talk to people. And I think if politics is what you've chosen, and this wonderful field that I love so much, if that is what you are called to do, I think there's never been a greater opportunity to come and join a group like Battleground Texas, to join Wendy or Leticia Vanderpute's campaign, to go and work at a county party, to go work for the state party. There are so many opportunities. And then in January, my favorite time of year, the legislative session starts. I have kind of Stockholm syndrome about it. I'm always so sad. I always want to be there. And that's when all of our legislators are in doing, I think, the Lord's work every other year for 6 months. And there are so many opportunities to go and do all of this great work. And it's just limitless. So find what you're interested in, and there are so many jobs available.
That's great. Anne, do you have any questions for us? Over here? Oh, perfect.
Hi, I'm Kent Giziski. I'm a senior here at UT studying neurobiology and psychology. My question is, I find a lot of my friends now, as we're graduating college, you have the perception we're just going to move to the big city of Washington, D.C., get started with an agency or a campaign there. But what do y'all suggest of going out to D.C. and taking a chance, or really focusing on state politics, kind of like you were talking about? And what's your opinion about that?
I think you should do what fits best for your plan. I loved my time in DC. I do wish that I could have spent a little bit more time. I'm so happy to be back home, but I definitely am one of those people that watches House of Cards and watches kind of them pan over DC and gets a little like, oh yeah, that was a pretty great place to live. It is a different place than here. I will say that. It is a different kind of place. I think that whatever you choose, it needs to be from a place of what is your plan? How are you going to network with what's next? Who are you going to meet? What are your strategic goals? If you really want to develop the leadership skills that I think you need to run a campaign, I think the best way to get that is locally, because you're only going to be a staff of 2 or 3 or 4, and so you're going to have to be able to make decisions, as opposed to being on a really large campaign. When I worked for the DNC and when we went to go work for the president's campaign, there were hundreds of digital staffers. So I was just one of a few. As opposed to coming back and working on a smaller scale race, you could be the digital staffer, and it forces you to kind of cultivate those leadership skills, and I think that that's useful. So it really kind of is, you do what works best for you, but I'm always one of those people that says start off scrappy. I think it really does build that character and that leadership skill that you're going to need in the future.
Yeah, I did both. I started out locally, got involved at the campus here, and got involved, just volunteering in elections, and then went to DC. I was there for almost 8 years, Spent a lot of time outside of the city, though, traveling around the country, different states, and met a lot of people, learned about how politics works or doesn't work in places like Ohio or California or Florida or wherever. And so met a lot of different people and found common themes among people and learned how to do political organizing in different states and different cities, rural and urban. And so there's a lot to that, getting that widespread experience, going to work in DC versus, Austin. There's opportunities in Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina, places like that. So I think you should kind of pursue what makes the most sense to you. And again, you can always change your mind, or you can come back. You really can't go wrong. I think you'll figure out what you enjoy and what you don't. But DC has a special, special role in that it is the nation's capital. You've got the international folks there. You have all sorts of people that work at embassies and sort of just thousands and thousands of people that work in interesting jobs, doing all sorts of things. And so you'll just meet so many people and have the opportunity to just really meet so many more people and people from all over the world that I think it's sort of one of those things you can't get unless you're there. So there is something to that. So I wouldn't say you have to be there to be successful in politics, but certainly that experience is second to none. But again, be open to doing different things. If you get an opportunity to work on a congressional campaign in Nebraska, it may not sound like a lot of fun, but go do it. You'll probably learn more there in some ways. Again, the scarcity of resources and staff than you will going to work in DC. But competition's pretty tough there. There's a lot of people applying to a lot of jobs, and you just you're going to have to just do your best to get that first one, and then use that to move laterally or move up.
Anne, do you have any questions?
On. Oh, sorry. This is a question from our Trinity University watch party, and they want to know, to what extent is it necessary to take a partisan position before getting into a political career?
Interesting.
Yeah. I would say you can certainly have a good, successful political career if you find an organization that is a little bit more bipartisan, nonpartisan. There are plenty of organizations out there that do that type of work. So I think you can probably do that. I think if you learn the right skill set, fundraising, if you go into that and you become really good at it, both sides are going to try and hire you. If you're a good writer, a good communicator, and whether you're a liberal, conservative, or moderate, I mean, again, if you're really good at what you do, people might end up hiring you. I think it's about the work, and it's about working for a cause you believe in. So if it is something nonpartisan or bipartisan, that's great. It's not going to hurt you at all. And there are people that go work for Democrats and Republicans. There are folks that have made a career of that, I guess, kind of going back and forth, or who are kind of in the middle, or trying to go for a third way or a new way or whatever. So there are opportunities across the board. I think that it's a lot more fun to be passionate about a cause and go and battle for it, but that's just me.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Also, shout out to Trinity, who distinguished alumnus Grant Fuller, my deputy, I think is one of the best email writers in the country. And again, I'm making them watch, so I can at least be nice. Good job, Trinity. You guys made a really good guy. I actually think that it is kind of important to take a stand. I think when you are going to be communicating, if you're going to work in a nonpartisan arena, when I worked for the Mexican American Legislative Caucus, we were a nonpartisan organization, and I think that that's really important. But if you're looking to work on a campaign, I think that you are going to be communicating with your target supporters about shared values and about things that you have in common, and persuading them to vote for your candidate. And I think that it is important for you to be able to communicate those shared values. And so I don't think that taking a stand is necessarily a bad thing. That doesn't mean that you have to go and where you're like, oh, I'm a bleeding heart liberal flag all the time. I think if you want to work for a campaign, you should feel like you're fundamentally aligned with the values of that campaign, so that you can effectively talk to those communities. But if you want to choose to go to a nonpartisan route, then I think that it might even be beneficial for you to not be really overly partisan one way or the other. But I don't think taking a stand is a bad thing. I think when you believe that what you're doing is helping people and making their lives better, you should be really, really proud of the values that you have.
On that note, John Cornyn was also a Trinity graduate, so I guess
Yes.
both sides can claim the Trinity fame, as can I. So, Anne, do you have any more questions? Oh, we do. Okay, great.
Thank you. My name is Kritarth Mahankali. I'm a third year here at UT, International Relations and Global Studies major. This is a bit of a personal interest question to both of you. Do you have any particularly memorable experiences on campaigns or working with people or even jobs for bad reasons? Have there been any particular ones that you just think, God, I never want to do anything like that again?
I think the only things that I would say that are particularly not memorable and things that I would hope to never repeat is when I have ever not erred on the side of being helpful or being kind. I think that sometimes coming up through politics, especially on the Democratic side, where you're kind of used to maybe not winning everything, it makes you a little hard. And I think that was one of the things, imagine my surprise, I went to DC to get softer, but I went to DC kind of hard as nails because I was used to just kind of like banging my head into a brick wall. And part of that is sometimes you're not kind when you need to be. You are, like you yell at somebody to get something that you need when you don't actually need to. And I think the best lesson that I have ever learned is that kindness is not weakness, and that helpfulness is not weakness, and to always, always err on the side of helping others, that you will accomplish everything that you have sought out to do. When I came back to Texas thinking, coming back to do Battleground, I was like, I really might like to, speak to some people about stuff that I do. I might like to do some trainings. And you realize that when you come into it from a place of like helpfulness and wanting to like cultivate this next generation of leaders, that you get everything that you're looking to do without having to light somebody up on the phone or having to be rude to someone or tell them like how much you know and how little you know. And I think that would be the only like bad experiences whenever I didn't err on the side of just being helpful or kind.
Yeah, great advice. And I mean, there are good people in politics, there are bad people in politics. There are people in it for the right reasons, people in it for the wrong reasons. No one likes to get yelled at, especially if, you feel like you didn't do anything wrong, but there are just some monsters out there that you'll meet that, just like to make people miserable. And you can't, it's one of those things you can't really reciprocate. You have to kind of rise above that. But there's a lot of people in this, in the business and in the business of politics, just, purely out of just, self-interest and making a name for themselves and maybe even scamming little old ladies out of money and things like that. So it's unfortunate, but my kind of take on this is that if good people don't get involved, if good people don't get in those positions, if people who treat people kindly don't take a stand, then we're just sort of leaving it to those people. So you sort of learn to get a thick skin. There are plenty of instances where I'm sure both of us have wanted to just get out of the business entirely because you're tired of missing a flight and being stuck in, some city, can't remember where you are, and you're getting abused by, somebody for something or whatever your boss did or your organization did. There's always something, but you've just got to kind of get up the next morning and know what you're going to work for, and that you've got to have that personal kind of confidence and drive to say, heck with them, this is what it's all about, and I'm, doing things because I believe in this and it's rewarding. So.
That's great. I have a question as well. Is one in the audience? No, please.
Hi, okay. Oh, my bad, that was loud. Okay, my name's Sean Sellers. I'm a freshman Plan 2 and Business Honors student at the university. So my question was just dealing with political apathy on campus, because I'm in an organization called Hook the Vote, and we're part of student government, and we try to get people registered and interested in politics on campus. So what do y'all find is a good way to get apathetic students engaged? Because the apathy on campus is just soul-crushing sometimes. So do you have any methods or any good ways to go about that?
Yeah, it's free food and drinks is nice. So when I came to UT and kind of started to get involved in YCT, we actually did a lot of cool things and got students pretty active and kept most of them active. I actually wrote a book on this called The Conservative Revolution, How to Win the Battle for College Campuses. And that whole thing was based on how to get students motivated and how conservatives could organize. And one of the things that I learned then and still sort of take with me now is there's a few things that you have to kind of remember. One is people join clubs and get involved in politics or policy for all sorts of different reasons. Some of them would just want to build their resume. Some of them are looking for a job. Some of them because their dad told them you should join the college Republicans. Some of them to meet girls or guys. It's a social thing. So I think you have to kind of understand that and just sort of be okay with, look, everyone's going to kind of join or get involved for different reasons. I think that that's just sort of the way it is. You're always going to have a handful of people, though, in the leadership of the club or the organization that do most of the work and that are just sort of there every day at every meeting, and they're the passionate people. And that's always going to be that way. It's the same way in campaigns, it's the same way with nonprofits and everything else. And so I think just finding what motivates people to get involved and encouraging them to do so, as long as it's not nefarious, I think that's the first step. But building a fun organization where it's a fraternal organization as much as anything else, where it's not just talking politics all the time. You have different speakers, or you go out and gather out off campus. You do all sorts of other things. Get together around other things, sports or holidays or something like that. Building that sense of team or family, the friendships. I mean, the thing I loved about YCT are the friendships I developed that I still have today, and many of those people are working in Austin now. So just know that it's normal, and know that students are interested in other things. But those that are super interested in politics, they're going to be the ones leading it anyway. And so if you're one of those people that's frustrated with dragging people to the meetings or dragging people to go hear a speaker or whatever, just know that it's always going to be that way. There's a lot of apathy in general in this country, and we could probably have a whole other discussion about why and how to cure that. But I think that's a good place to start, is just to keep it fun and interesting, and you'll probably have some success.
Yeah, I think that's really smart. I think one of the things that we do in digital organizing, and it transcends into person-to-person organizing, what you guys are doing, is called the ladder of engagement, right? It's the right ask to the right person, the right time for the right reason. So like you and I just met Sean, and it would be super weird if I told you to like come home and meet my parents, and then we're gonna go to the wine country and we're gonna have like a romantic weekend together, because I just met you, I probably need to buy you dinner first, right? So when you're building these relationships, and when you're building this organization, and you're trying to get them to have an end goal, right, which is, you're talking about voter apathy, like turning out to vote. You got to make sure that you're engaging with them step by step, right? So the first thing you shouldn't ask them is like, hey, I'm Sean, I need you to vote. It's like, hey, come and enjoy this really cool culture that we've built around a shared value that we have. Like, hey, can you get involved in these like really low level asks before you start making higher level asks, like, I need you to turn out to vote. I need you to go register voters. You got to get them in doing something kind of low level, right? So you're moving them along this ladder of engagement. And the secret is, like, once you're moving them along, they become more invested. And what you're gonna find is that they will be more invested in you and the relationship and the promise that they've made to you to get more involved than just the overall idea of like, oh, I need to vote in November. They're gonna say, like, you and I have a friendship, like you and I have like a fraternal relationship, so I need to make sure that I'm doing my part. And so I think when you're looking at building these relationships, building these communities online and offline, it's taking them through that ladder of engagement, getting them in something really low bar, like come enjoy some free pizza. And then it's like, come enjoy some free pizza and like tell us a little about yourself. And then from there, it's like get involved in some advocacy to the end goal of like, hey, I really need you to turn out. Because I think you're right, Texas leads the nation in like, we're like 48th in the nation of like lowest like voter turnout. So like people are, we always say this in Battleground, it's not that we're a red state, it's just we're a non-voting state, right? So it's not just college campuses. We're trying to figure out how to get everybody to have some skin in the game. And I think the best way to do that is to build that skin in the game and get them invested in you and get them invested in your organization.
And if that doesn't work, try guilt or shame.
Yeah, as a Catholic man, guilt and shame get me every time.
Those work pretty well on our campus as well.
Hi, my name is Brittany Justice. I am a sophomore at St. Edward's University. And so I am an intern at the Capitol right now for a House member. And I often find myself struggling balancing work and going to school at the same time. And we're not even in session yet. And I've had a lot of friends, upperclassmen, who have worked during session, and they said that they were at the Capitol till 4 a.m. And eventually, they had to quit because they were, failing classes. It was really difficult to manage. And, you guys said that you started this in college. So do you guys have any advice on how to have, I guess, better time management with politics and, going to school at the same time?
I think it's a really, really good question. I think it's a really smart question because that's exactly right. During the session, I like to say like the first 30 days is kind of like shaking hands and cocktail parties, and then all of a sudden everybody realizes we're here to do business, and we work until like 2 in the morning, and it's crazy. And I couldn't even imagine balancing a full school schedule with that. But I think the best thing, and what I would say as someone that hires folks and has a team, is make sure that you are actively communicating your schedule and like what your workload looks like to your boss. And making sure that you guys have that open dialogue where you can say like, this is not, like this workload as it currently stands is not allowing me to put the emphasis on school. And that's a priority for you. Because you should never go into a situation where you assume that your boss knows your workload, knows how much time you need to go and study, how much sleep you need, how far away from work you live. We don't know until you tell us. And so it's really, really important to have that open line of communication and to let them know like, hey, I enjoy my job, I like what I'm doing, I need to be able to balance this better, and I want to do this during the session, and I know like coming after the session, how can you help me? And then they could give you some tips too. Like, okay, why don't you take this morning class instead of this evening class? Or hey, how about you take Wednesdays off completely so that you can get everything that you need to do? You can work out those schedules if you just have like that open communication with your chief of staff or with your representative.
Yeah, I don't think you gain anything by, dropping out of school to go do this internship that then, there's no guarantee of success after. There will be another session. Every 2 years they happen. It's just, something that, you can do in the future. So if it gets too much, but I think, work with your boss, let them know, communicate. And every week I ask the question, well, what's so-and-so doing up this today? Like, oh yeah, don't you remember they told you that they were doing this event or they were going to this or they were, I never remember anybody's schedule. And I always, Vinny there's still in school, and I'm always forgetting that he has class, and always he has to remind me every week, like, oh no, I have class that time. Oh right. I mean, so it's just your boss is probably thinking about so many other things or focused on other things, so you just have to kind of over communicate with them. And I would say too, one thing that you see in the legislature, not to pick on anybody in particular, but there are some pretty. Some people who treat their employees really well and some that don't. You don't deserve to be abused or treated like you're worthless. You can always go intern for someone else, so don't be afraid. There's a large group of people that are elected representatives in the legislature, so make sure that you take care of yourself and don't have to deal with that. But it's pretty unreasonable hours sometimes at the legislature and campaigns too. And I'm not much of a 4 a.m. person myself, so if I were ever working in the legislature as a staffer or a legislator, that'd be my first order of business would be to change that culture.
No kidding.
Yeah, maybe that's something we could work on.
Right? Some bipartisan legislation to be like
Enough
in
of
bed
this
by 10.
Craziness.
Solid bedtime, I like that.
Right? 10 o'clock bedtime, guys.
First for bipartisanship, excuse me. So unfortunately, we have time for one last question before we wrap things up for the evening. So.
Hi, my name is Christopher Olivares. I'm also from St. Edward's University. I'm a freshman studying political science. And we talked earlier about online marketability, but I wanted to talk more about how you can kind of carry out the classical forms of making yourself marketable and what that entails in the area of politics.
Well, I think that, as I said earlier, I think that your social media presence is very important these days. And I think that, one of the funniest things is when I follow someone on Twitter and they have this personality and you think they look a certain way and they are a certain way and you meet them in person and it's completely different. A lot of people almost overdo the branding and they create this caricature of themselves and meet them in person and you're like, oh, that's you, so you're in the real world, and we need both the digital world and kind of the real world, they go together, but in the real world when you meet people, and people are still looking for how you treat people and your professionalism and how you carry yourself, your confidence, are you kind? I mean, those sort of things absolutely still matter a great deal. And, I think you can't go wrong to remember that, you can even be a Luddite and still work in politics. Not to say that I'm a complete Luddite, but there are those that are just not as involved in social media or technology and who have long and successful careers. So I just think those things still matter. I think the traditional things of how to get a job and keep a job, they matter. And what's interesting to me is how in the workforce in general, again, it is not that hard to sort of rise above and kind of, be the cream of the crop. I mean, so many people are just content to do the average, to just kind of show up and, you know, just do enough to get by. I mean, when you just go beyond that, you're already putting yourself ahead of the game. And so there are very few people that are willing to take it to even that next level. If you're one of those people, people will notice. And I think that's as good of a recipe for success as anything.
Yeah, I think that that's really smart. I think another thing that you can do that's kind of more classical, and I think you're in a really great position because you're in your first year, which is just remarkable. I mean, when I was a freshman, I don't even know what I was doing. So not this. Is take advantage of those relationships that you have with your professors. When you're working on your internships or your next summer projects, keep those relationships going from, you know, like just because you intern for one summer, don't stop talking to your old boss, because those are the next things. Even if you don't have this crazy social media portfolio or this brand, you'll have people that can advocate for you. And just like Brendan was saying, when we're looking to hire people, a lot of times I'll call someone and I'm just like, hey, what do you know about Christopher? And they're like, oh, he was great. He was an amazing intern for me. And so it's like building those advocates for you. When I was looking to work at the DNC, you know, it's thousands of people for this one job. And it's like, how do I get myself to the top of the stack? Well, I basically phone treed everyone who I had ever worked with and who had ever known me and ever knew that I just like could handle this. And I had them call and say, oh, you know what, she's great. She can do this. She can absolutely. And so you're building that network of advocates for you. And I think that's just as important as your portfolio, just as important as your resume, is who can you call when you're needing that job to say, hey, I need you to give this person a call, and to say, like, to vouch for me, tell me like they're solid. And you'd be surprised how much of like our hiring process, when we're just trying to whittle down 1,000 to like 25 to interview, is looking through and being like, oh, they worked in Ohio, let me call so-and-so and see what the deal is. And so like build those relationships now, so that the second you need something, you can just call and you can get those interviews.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. You know, I've gotten a lot of calls from, you know, potential employers, you know, about people who worked for me who, you know, either did a really good job or didn't, and I was very happy to help those who did a good job. And the other ones, you know, it's you're not going to go out of your way as a person who has your own credibility, as a boss, or as a person who has your own, you know, your own name is on the line. When someone calls you and says, hey, I know so-and-so worked for you, you know, you're not going to be as enthusiastic about endorsing them as you are the people that did a good job. And so, yeah, you never know. You never know who you meet that's going to be willing to help you and make that call. And it matters so much. That's a lot of how the resumes get sifted, is that third-party credibility. I do that, and that happens to me, and it happens to the people that work for me. There's a conversation going on that you're not privy to that, you know, if you've done it right, at least they'll be able to say positive things, or nothing at all, but nothing negative.
Well, I wanted to jump in and also offer another tool that's available to anyone who's interested across the state. And on the back of your programs of the folks here in Austin, you have more information about our upcoming campaign boot camp. It's a 3-day weekend where we have both Democratic and Republican mentors and active political professionals train the next generation of young people in how to work on a campaign and how to create your own campaign plan. Registration is currently open, and it's May 30th through June 1. But we did have a video from last year, and I think it's the best way to really explain what the weekend is really about.
You know when you watch the trailer for a movie, and the first line is always, in a world.
You know, I look at these students and I think, someday, one of these students is going to be a campaign manager on a Democratic governor's race, and another one's going to be a campaign manager on a Republican governor's race.
In a world, it's the first paragraph of your campaign plan, which should suck me, the reader, into the idea of what you're trying to do.
What if we brought together top-notch Democratic and Republican political operatives to do joint trainings and bring back civil discourse?
The idea of why is this urgent? Why is your candidate the superhero or superheroine who's going to save us from whatever ills we have, right?
And so we came up with this vision of a campaign training that didn't just teach young people how campaigns are, but helped them to conceptualize how campaigns could be.
One of the beauties of American democracy, we have a ton of elections.
We don't have an on-year election cycle anymore. It's always campaign season.
So far, just hearing the personal stories about what some of the presenters have had to go through.
They sent me to Iowa in December.
My first political job was with the Republican Party of Texas in 2004.
I actually worked for former Governor Ann Richards in 1994. She was my first campaign.
You just have to be willing to go and do.
Today's seminar, which was the Finance Committee, how to attract donors.
I personally believe that the most important thing in any campaign is the fundraising.
Campaigns are all about math.
The most important part of this job to me is creativity.
This game is about blocking and tackling.
Rob Johnson was saying it's all about blocking and tackling.
You don't do this because it's cool. You do this because you believe in something and you want to change the world.
Tunisia is the first country that got that started the Arab Spring. When I went and asked one of the mentors that we have here, how do I apply this to my country, and he gave me like great insight.
I think the best part is just getting to be around people that care about what you care about.
Me networking with these people, these individuals, the speakers, the mentors, are all helping me to become who I want to be.
Never forget that an election is about the voters and not about you.
People come first.
But part of winning a campaign is connecting emotionally to your audience.
You cannot separate the website from social media, from email, from online fundraising. The first thing is to define your target.
Start with an idea and a candidate.
We want to build the campaign around these issues because we polled it, we know it's going to work. The bigger the race, the more people you have to persuade. Smaller the race, the more people you have to turn out.
How many votes do I need to win? Where do they live? How do I reach them? And how much does that cost?
There's not a lot of people that do this. So if you start really crushing it, you're always going to have a job offer.
For your simulations, Emily has emailed you data for House District 107.
Yeah, so 79, 8,000 votes is what we need to get.
We're down 8,100.
So I covered everything.
If we can help mobilize them to vote, then we have a really good shot.
A lot of campaigns schools I've been a part of put them in a room for 12 hours and then they go home and they come back for another 12 hours of just nonstop presentations. The ability to learn and do is crucial.
That's 9,000 half of this. We're on 30,000. We want it.
So you need to start inward and grow outward.
It's nice to be able to try and apply what we've learned and try and figure out how you actually go about doing this.
How much would it cost for us to do that?
Like we've noticed, they're wanting to cut budgets.
So that's why
we should stick to protecting our kids by defending the
We're condensing months and maybe years of planning and working in these brigades. It's intense.
You have questions about the data?
Everyone's just sitting down and working on their campaign. The different trainers are coming around, and they were putting in just as much effort and as thought and help as we were trying to put into our campaign plans themselves.
So a male piece of the touch, another male piece of the touch.
The other thing, don't forget, is to look at Chris Perkins pulling it.
Office hours are over and they're like, we're going to the student center for another 2 hours to finish this project. And that's the hunger and the desire to be a part of campaigns that people like me are looking for to hire.
So this is the part that we're most excited about.
My favorite moment was actually presenting with my group.
Our main focus is going to be to get out the vote.
We'll begin with the July 4th kickoff event. We're trying to win. We're trying to win big. You have students doing Facebook pages, Wikipedia pages, mail pieces.
We're going to use mail, phone, and definitely face-to-face.
They're being super creative because they've been given the access to be creative.
We're going to target independents and swing voters.
We ballparked at $250,000 would be our goal.
And we have to present surplus in case. Thank you.
The best way for me to describe it is eye-opening.
Campaign Boot Camp is an amazingly valuable tool.
You have really heard from some fantastic people today.
How do I get a job in politics? Well, you come to stuff like this, you meet folks like us.
And whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, just have the attitude that no job is too small.
If we believe that democracy is the best form of government, we ought to be invested in making that democracy stronger. And the only way to do that is if everybody gets in the game.
So we hope to see many of you there. It's May 30th through June 1. For the Austin folks, I will explain a little bit about an opportunity for you guys to win a free entry into Campaign Boot Camp. There are scholarships available. But for now, I would like us to please join me in thanking Brenda, Christina, and Avantika for all of their help this evening. We are going to invite them to move on down to the second floor lobby, and we will meet them there in a few minutes, and they can get started. Please join me in thanking them. Thank you guys so much. Oh, people in Austin, stay here for just a second. I want to explain what's going to happen next.